sector is expected to do better in all this morass, and that is the telecom sector, especially after the TRAI's recommendations over the weekend, indicating that they have prepared for much lower spectrum prices, 37% lower than the previous auction, which itself was 30% lower than the previous. To discuss the prospects of this sector, Sanjeev Agad joins us. He's, of course, the resident telecom sector expert. We'll also be joined by more experts in a bit. Mr. Agad, thank you very much for joining us. What did you make of the spectrum price cuts? Will this be the last of the cuts?
Well, there is too much emphasis on the reserve price, but let me take the recommendations as a whole. There are 3 or 4 or 5 important legs to it. The first one is the simpler ones are encouragement to spectrum trading, which is good. Rationalization of spectrum usage charges, which is logical and should have been done long back. A move towards getting more spectrum from the extended GSM band, which is also positive. This TRAI recommendation of yesterday has not created the issue of refarming or of liberalization, but it has unfortunately had to persist with problems created earlier, which I think I have a basic philosophical difference of opinion. It's not the right way to do policy. But however, if I take the big broad thrust of TRAI recommendations, if I put everything together, the thrust is towards putting more spectrum into productive use, which is the exact opposite of what the government has been doing for the last 5 or 6 years, which is hoarding spectrum, jacking up prices, and that is how you exercise control. And from that point of view, this is a very positive direction for the sector. Forget the sector, it's a very positive direction for the economy. And of course, it is only a recommendation, so one can only hope that the government takes it up. But I would like to add that what is not contained in the recommendations, there are at least 2 more slots for 2100 megahertz, which can be obtained by a very simple adjustment with the defense. And there are at least 1 or 2 more slots which can come from the extended GSM brand. So if all this comes in, this whole spectrum shortage is an artificial shortage. And once you get out of this artificial shortage, put spectrum into the market, the consumer will be happy, the country will be happy, the finance minister will be happy.
Do you think that is also something which can trigger or encourage more of consolidation, mergers and acquisitions?
Well, mergers and acquisitions, I'll have to be a little long-winded, but let me do that if you have the time. There's a fundamental difference between 2008 and 2013. In 2008, there were the cut price warriors who were able to sustain their adventures based on ability to get equity from suckers and to get banks to evergreen loans. Times have changed. Now businesses are 5 or 15 or 16 years old. People look at cash flows. And if you won't get banks to restructure, and if you won't get fresh suckers, then you've got to put in your own money to sustain this kind of adventure. And that is what is becoming harder. And therefore you are seeing a little bit of hardening of the realized rate, even though the headline rate will never go up, but the realized rate is going up. Unfortunately, to answer your question of M&A, there are structural reasons which impede M&A, because at the moment M&A rules mean that you can merge without the spectrum. Right. And therefore you have this phenomenon of zombie operators which we find right now. But the moment those rules are done, you will find a precipitate improvement in rationalization. So I think you have to wait a bit.
Okay, Mr. Agha, I'm just going to come back to you in a bit, because this market is really tearing away, so we need to keep our eyes squarely focused on the market. 500-point rally now on the Sensex, and it's not even 10:30 a.m. this morning. We've seen a sudden spike up in the last 10 minutes or so, and we were making this point earlier about how perhaps long-only funds are accumulating in this market. Look at a couple of these stocks. ITC is up 3.5% and big volumes on ITC right now. HDFC is up about 6% right now, and the volumes are picking up on HDFC. So the bluest of blue chip names are now seeing some amount of accumulation. So don't really take your eye out away from the markets at this point in time.
Some of those mid caps, 10.5% higher on Walkhart. Yes Bank as well, 6.5%. Tata Motors DVR up 5.7%. L&T Finance Holdings 5.3%. I mean, it's just, the list is endless. The number of stocks above 5%, a good 10-15 of them with decent volumes even in the mid-cap space, doing fairly well.
Yeah, clearly. So let's get an Ankur Rudra. He also tracks the telecom space. Ankur, I want to straight away talk to you about individual stocks because Bharti is the big gainer today, up about 5%. What could the impact be on a company like Bharti? And do you see the auction go through successfully, this time at least, because of the recommendations, of that cut in spectrum prices?
So, hi, good morning. So clearly any lowering of the long-term industry cost structure from spectrum pricing is a positive for an incumbent like Bharti or for Idea. The extent of the cuts, although sharp, are not extremely different from what we were expecting. We were expecting maybe a tad lighter cuts, so clearly they're positive. The bigger positive for Bharti is that the regulator seems to be a bit more business friendly this time. There's a bit more of regulatory certainty. We've seen lesser of regulatory oscillations from before. In terms of the upside to our valuations, we were buyers on Bharti with a valuation of 382. We'll probably see a 3 to 4% upside if these are the prices at which spectrum is acquired. But again, there are a couple of steps left now. One, we have to know who are the possible bidders when the first round comes out, and more importantly, if the government accepts these prices.
Okay, Mr. Aga, do you think people will bid at this new price, an average of 7,480 crore for the 1800 megahertz spectrum?
It's very hard to hazard what price a market will get in telecom, particularly because people keep looking at the reserve price, but the big imponderable is the quantity of spectrum.
Okay.
And the government in the past has jacked up prices by choking supply and choking the country in the process. Now, assuming that spectrum is put in the market, which it should be from an economic point of view, I would say the reserve price is not that steep a cut. It would be not very far from what the market would have determined the price to be. And I think to answer your question, the question which was contained in your question, now that arbitrage seeking is going to be hopefully a thing of the past, you would have only people with business plans. So you will never again in India see those people in Sanchar Bhavan stampeding.
Okay.
Okay.
This irrational or rational behavior of competitors is a function of rational behavior of the policymakers. And so it is not unconnected. And I won't be surprised, that I'm a telecom background guy, but I don't want to interfere in your financial. But the problems are not of finance ministries alone. It is of course retrospective taxation has been very harsh on India. But the problems have been created by line ministries. And once there is an indication that line ministries are going to get their act together, you will find the market jump even higher.
We hope so, but